Hey there, everyone, and welcome to another video. So we've arrived at a new month. It's now November. And one of the key features of particularly this first week of November is the fact that Saturn stations direct at 0 Pisces. And so this brings a definite new flavor to the planet Saturn. Now, this has been a process since Saturn first hit 0 degrees of Pisces back on October 12. And it won't leave that 0 degree position of Pisces until the end of this month on November 29. This means that Saturn is sort of hovering over that 0 degree position of Pisces for a total of 6 weeks. So as we begin November, there really is a sense of a fresh start becoming apparent. And this might be mostly felt in the Pisces house of your birth chart. So in some ways, this feels a little bit like your free trial period of Saturn in Pisces in 2023 is officially over. So before I get into some more details and tips on, what you might be able to expect with this planetary station is first, I'd love to thank everybody who watched my recent eclipse video and subscribed to the channel. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate that. And something else I'd like to share with you is that if you're interested in taking your astrology to the next level, the next intake of my Contemporary Astrology Program begins on November 15. There'll be 14 in other parts of the planet. So this course is going to take you to the very foundation of reading charts. I use a combination of traditional astrology, so that will stem from the Hellenistic era through the medieval, Renaissance. And my original background in astrology when I started almost 20 years ago now was in modern psychological. So this will give you a really good, well-rounded view of astrology in the technical, the philosophical, and of course the practical. So what's the point of all of this wonderful knowledge if you can't delineate it and wrap language around it in a way that not only you can understand, but also our clients, friends, and the like. So I've been teaching astrology now since 2008. It's actually been quite a long time. So if you'd love to join me, I'd love to have you in the program. As I said, it starts November 15. I'll put a link in the description box below. I'd love to have you on board. Yes, there's all the regular things, the pay in full options, the payment plans. And of course, if you're in the USA or you utilize the currency of euro, you'll get a lot of benefits on the exchange rate too, if that helps you be able to afford astrological study that doesn't break the bank neither. So as I said, all those details will be in the description below. So back to Saturn in Pisces. Now, since Saturn first entered Pisces, particularly since June, when it's stationed retrograde at 7 degrees, I think Saturn has really brought, well, the common thread I've been experiencing when I've been reading for clients or just talking with people in general is this feeling of discombobulation, a lacking in foundation and focus. And as I said, particularly since the retrograde station, which happened, I think, maybe June 17, it's really felt like clinging to a piece of wood while you're lost in the middle of the ocean. So this has been a general thread, as I've said, and just some examples of experiences that, have been spoken to me is that clients, people I know, etc. So one example was just this idea of finding it difficult to get a rhythm and routine. It's just the ebb and flow of Pisces has not been very conducive to the more rigid structures that Saturn prefers. So finding hard to maintain that. Just the loss of foundational basics that helps you feel grounded, stable, and clear. So it might be, oh yeah, I really love to do this thing. That might be X, Y, Z, but just not feeling like you've got the time or the energy to make that Saturnian type of effort. That's something I know I've personally experienced up until Saturn in Pisces. I used to spend about 8 to 10 hours lifting heavy weights in the gym. I've probably been there, and that was a week, and I've probably been there just, 8 to 10 times since then. So I'm with all the people that are feeling just that time is hard to get traction on right now. And even other really practical examples. For instance, a friend of mine said to me just the other day, he's in his 50s. So he said, this is the first time in my adult life I've actually gone backwards financially. So this is the idea of, the things that Saturn wants to kind of cling to and manifest and build is a little bit of a slippery fish when we're moving through Pisces. So yes, it is a slippery and messy placement. It's like this idea, how do you define the edge of the ocean, which it's always in ebb and flow and changing all the time as those waves crash up onto the sand. And I think this has been really a felt influence, especially after having 5 years of Saturn in Saturn signs. While that was its own sort of kettle of fish there, but we knew what was on the memo, right? Saturn was just going to do Saturn things in a very obvious, clear, profound, and quite a relentless fashion. So while the initial ingress of Saturn in Pisces, which I think was March sometime, I forget now, sometime in March that happened, and maybe it was the 25th, I can't remember. And up until about mid-June, that might have felt relieving. Oh, thank God that's over. Or just might have kind of felt a little bit, comfortably melancholic or soothing almost, a little bit of a balm for the soul. But since March, Saturn's only gone as far as 7 degrees. And so while that initial while that initial ingress may have felt soothing and relieving, after a while, treading water for such a long period of time and not feeling like you're getting very far is pretty exhausting, right? So because it's only gone about 7 degrees in 7 months, Saturn has really moved pretty slowly. So Saturn will be direct this week at 0 Pisces. And then by the time Saturn stations retrograde again, that's going to be, I think, about June sometime in 2024. And Saturn would have gone as far as 19 degrees. So, in pretty much the same amount of time, this first installment of Saturn in Pisces just moved 7 degrees. But this time moving forward from the beginning of November through to June, we're going to get 19 degrees. So that's pretty much 2/3 of that sign. So Saturn in Pisces is going to be dramatically different in this second iteration of the transit. So what I want to do now is just give you a few key ideas and a few concepts that I'll riff on just a little bit to help you navigate this space and give you a few ideas on what you can expect and therefore what you might be able to do. So Saturn stationing at the very beginning of a sign really does bring a fresh start and a refocus, particularly of priorities, which is a big Saturn theme. So Saturn in Pisces, just in of itself, holds a tremendous ton of water. And that's just in of itself. And with the co-presence of Neptune, it's almost like the levee is breaking. The water can only hold so much for so long, right? So if you've been feeling foggy, maybe sort of hungover without the good time to show for it, maybe overwhelm is a big theme too. Maybe you've really felt weighed down by the collective grief that's sort of happening in the zeitgeist at the moment. Or maybe it's just a general sense of melancholy. You may come to realize that you need to, I'm going to use a lot of ocean analogies here. So, if you're just been sort of floating around in the ocean trying to hold on, this Saturn station is going to help you find a part of the ocean where at least you can touch, you can touch the bottom. And when you can touch the bottom of the ocean, you've just got that a little bit more of a foundational anchor point from which you can kind of ride the tide of the changing tides of that ocean. So that's going to help you a little bit to navigate the kind of oceanic current. So this might mean as Saturn stations that you need to dry out in some way, shape or form. And that might mean figuring things out, like what are your responsibilities and obligations? And where have you taken on too much since March, where you've nearly drowned? versus where have you, maybe not even put your toe in the ocean yet. So maybe where you've not taken on enough responsibility. Another idea is that, sorry to say, but no one is coming to save you. Sad but true. Saturn can be that king of self-loathing, but at the same time, it can also be the king of the denial of responsibility. As my grandmother would say, there's no medals for being a martyr. So Saturn's restart can really help, dust yourself off and get back on the horse, or, dry out a little bit and get back on the into the ocean. So if you fall off that board, well, you've just got to climb back up on it and catch the next wave. And that's probably the better analogy to use for Saturn in Pisces. So when you do that, you get the chance to show yourself what you are actually capable of achieving. If you fall off the surfboard and just decide to ride the wave in and go, yep, not done with that, well, you're never going to get better at it, right? So even if you have had a few disappointments, maybe a failure or two, or something hasn't really worked out the way you hoped for the bulk of this year, Saturn's return to 0 degrees of Pisces and stationing direct there is really, okay, I've had my trial period of Saturn in Pisces, and maybe you have to realize I actually didn't like it, or maybe you really liked it, but hey, it's a little bit getting back to business now. It's also really important to sort of be your own best friend as opposed to your own worst enemy with Saturn in Pisces. Show yourself the compassion that you would show to other people. So if you've had some disappointments or heartache, or maybe you've just felt so tired and foggy that you haven't really done all you hoped that you would have achieved so far in 2023, tomorrow's always a brand new day, right? The next thing is seal up leaks. Ships don't sink because of the water that's around them. They sink because of the water that gets in them. So you may need to seal up some leaks in your own life in some way, shape, or form, and particularly the part of life that is ruled by the sign of Pisces for you. So this might also bring you back to some key Saturn themes, and some of those are of time. Saturn does rule time. So this might mean being accountable for your time. How are you spending your time? Are you wasting time? Make your time count. I know when I did a webinar on Saturn in Pisces earlier in the year, one of my ideas was about rediscovering magic and finding that little piece of your life where it can be magical and enchanted. If you've lost sight of that, it might be time to return to it. Yes, there's impending doom out there in the collective, whether it's, likely war, economic and Western collapse. It's not going to stop just because of your feelings about it, or if you continue to doom scroll instead of tending to your corner of the globe and finding your own bit of magic. It's a big question that my friend says often, what is yours to do in this sort of timeline? So whether you're wasting time on the internet, arguing with strangers on the internet, or looking for confirmation bias or dopamine hits from your scrolling, maybe it's time to reassess that a little bit. Instead, you might decide, hey, I'm going to use this time, I'm going to use this restart of Saturn to build my own arc. That might mean getting your finances in order, no longer having your head in the sand about particular areas of life that you've been oblivious to. This might mean growing a garden if that's what makes you feel more solid, stable, and secure, which is what Saturn does enjoy. This might mean starting that podcast you think that no one's going to listen to. This might mean taking a chance on love, or dedicating yourself to a passion or a pastime that you keep putting off because you tell yourself you're too busy. So instead of being in denial or making excuses, this is a time to really commit to something you feel passionate about, or commit to something that feels really inspiring and magical as well. Another idea with Saturn stationing at 0 Pisces and therefore starting again is put your own mask on first. And in the modern day, I think a lot of us are sort of made to feel, lesser than if we're not on board with whatever the in thing is or whatever the next thing that we're sort of told to care about. But those who remain calm in the storm are the ones most likely to survive it. So whether that's world events, whether that's drama you're experiencing at work, in your personal or social life, or whatever it is that's pulling on those compassionate heartstrings, everyone knows you're not going to be any good to anyone until you're good to yourself. So Saturn coming back to 0 in Pisces might be about, recommitting to something that feels good for you, that really helps to find that inner joy and that inner inspiration and commit to those dreams. And that's why airlines always tell us, in case of an emergency, put your own mask on first. So this might mean making the most of the time you've got, or committing to the things that you always tell yourself, oh yeah, one day I'll get around to doing that. In Australia, we call those gonna do's. All those people that say, I'm gonna do this and gonna do that. We just nickname them gonna do. So it's, the ultimate procrastinators. Another idea with Saturn stationing at 0 Pisces is cut the ropes. This idea reminds me of those times if you've ever tried to save somebody, you've ever tried to give someone a life raft, a leg up, a helping hand, but instead of using that rope to sort of pull themselves up and give themselves that leg up, all they've succeeded at doing is pulling that rope down and then, attempting to drown you in that process. So as Saturn stations at the very start of Pisces again, you might start to get that inkling or feeling of whom or what is doing this in your own life. Or are you doing it to yourself? Are you pulling yourself down and under because you're just not pulling yourself up? Another way of looking at this is if you're on a boat on the ocean and a storm comes and water's getting in the boat, you've probably seen this in the movies, right, where they start to unload the boats. That might mean lifting up food and supplies and what have you, and this is to prevent the ship from sinking or the boat from sinking. So you might look at your own life and what's causing you to sink proverbially. That might be your job. Maybe you hate it, and you're like, oh, why am I even doing this? Maybe it's a relationship or a partner. Maybe you're feeling this sort of undue pressure of buying a property, or because you've got to get into the market. Whatever it is that you feel the weight or the heaviness of life, cut those ropes and set yourself free. So when a planet, especially one as weighty as Saturn stations direct, it's going to pull on all of the mutable houses or planetary placements that you have in your own birth chart. So that'll be, Gemini and Virgo, as well as Sagittarius. So if you have planets or points at those mutable signs, Saturn stationing direct at the very start of the sign, and, this 6 weeks just on 1 degree, it's going to bring that sort of weight or gravitas to all of the other Saturn transits that you may be having. So this will also pertain to your watery placements, so Cancer or Scorpio as well. So you're going to get, and you've probably, if you reflect on this, you'll probably think, oh yeah, well, since, mid-August, XYZ has been happening. And so you've probably, if you reflect on this, as I said, you've probably already got an inkling or an idea of what's building for you and what is yours to do with this Saturn in Pisces transit. So Saturn's station this week is certain to give you a good dose of clarity around what is required from you in order to ride this tide of Saturn in Pisces. So it is kind of, going gangbusters, I think, until June. Once Saturn hits 19, it will station retrograde, and then we'll have that little sort of, mid-section, mid-year, mid-degree points, Pisces. Okay, we're halfway there. And then there's that time to perhaps take stock and start again somewhat. But this time, I think it's okay. We've dipped our toe in the water since March and figured out, is the temperature right for us or not? And then we can spend, this week and the best part of November, because Saturn doesn't get to 1 degree until the end of the month. So we can spend basically November adjusting the temperatures accordingly and figuring out some of those Saturn themes, accountability, responsibility, limitations, boundaries, and, finding your rock in the oceanic waters that are always in ebb and flow. So I hope that's helped navigate this, I think, which is I guess a significant influence for this week and for this month as well. So if you would like to explore more about the astrology of November in greater detail, the Golden Circle Club is my astrology membership, where there's loads of videos that I do each month, resources, calendars in 3 different time zones to help you navigate everything that's going on. We have a community, we have new moon catch-ups each month, all of the things. So if you would love to be a part of that, it's open all of the time. It's not like I take insignificant, it's not like I just open up the doors every now and then. You can come whenever you would love to. It'd be great to have you there. And then, of course, readings are available too. And then the Contemporary Astrology Program, November 15. So I'd love to hear in the comments below, how are you feeling with Saturn stationing? Are you ready? Are you not? Are you dreading it? Do you have an idea of what's ahead for you? I'd love to hear. And of course, if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And I look forward to offering more astrology real soon.